We're back. This time we're going to take a look at another board game. This time it's another dungeon crawl. This one is Super Dungeon Explorer: The Forgotten King by Tabletop Minis. And we'll get right in and take a look. Things are packed extremely tight in these ones. They're kind of out of order because I've already had it open and looked it through some things, but we'll take a look. First we have a quick start rules. They kind of walk you through how to play your first scenario. It's done in the classic mode where one player controls the characters, one player controls the creatures. Does a pretty good job of explaining how the game works and what the basics are and how to do things. On the back there's a few suggestions and hints. Next up we have the new book for this expansion. This one's the Super Dungeon Explorer arcade mode. And this is actually new for the second edition here, the Forgotten King's release of the game. This book allows you to play through the scenarios and things as a co-op, where it's just the players against what they call the Consul, and it's kind of an interesting new addition to the game. It lets you play even single player if you'd like. But the fact that you can do everything completely co-op as opposed to the standard Super Dungeon Explorer where it's everyone versus the Consul. So interesting. It does slow the gameplay down a lot, especially when you're new and you're still learning the rules. I've tried a couple test games just to see how things work, and playing solo, trying to run 3 characters and learn the rules really bogs the game down, makes it take forever. However, I've seen some other people play the game and they know they're familiar with the rules and they can move along really quickly through. And it all seems good once you learn and get the hang of things. The next book is for our classic mode. And classic mode is basically the original Super Dungeon Explorer. This one has some new streamlining and some errata already worked into the book. In this edition of the game, it is all the players who are playing the heroes versus a player controlling all the monsters who's called the Consul. And this is actually the best way I found for beginners. A lot of people say to try the arcade mode, play the co-op. I actually found that this mode works better because you can have a more experienced player run the Consul. And not only can they help out with the rules and things, but depending on how the players are doing, if you've got one really experienced player, one new player and whatnot, they can kind of tailor the game difficulty by the way they move around the enemies and who they attack and what kind of actions they're doing. So if the players are having a really rough time or it's a new player who's not familiar with the rules, they can go a little easier on them. Whereas if it's an experienced veteran and they have good equipment and people are just stomping through things, they can really focus on them and give them more of a challenge. Definitely a neat idea there. Next we have the Explorer's Handbook. I never actually played the original Super Dungeon Explorer, so I don't know if there was one of these in there. But this book is actually completely filled with background history, stories, the lore of the world, the heroes, what you're doing, why you're doing these campaigns. And it's a really neat background for a board game. I've never seen something quite this in-depth aside from, you know, Warhammer and that kind of thing. Definitely interesting, and you have all your characters listed here, and each one of them has several paragraphs about them explaining what they do and who they are, where they came from. This one's basically just an advertisement for the production company. Shows several interesting games that they have on the way. Basically an advertisement. The inside here you get a nice look at Super Dungeon Explorer and several of the expansions that are available, which are kind of nice. Next we have the game tiles. They're huge. I had to guess they're roughly about a foot across. They're pretty big tiles. They are a little busy compared to other games. You see these hashing lines around them. They have little symbols on them. There are various traps and hazards and things. They're all double-sided. And there's cards that explain what the hazards and things are. And a map in the scenario book that tells you which tiles to use and where, just like in other similar games. You get 6 of those tiles with various designs rooms and dungeons and whatnot on them. Under that, I've gone through and done a lot of organizing with this. They do come with this nice tray, which a lot of games these days don't. It's nice, it's got spots for all your cards. They actually have more spots for cards than you need, I'm assuming, so you can put some expansions in there. There was an upgrade deck for things from previous games and whatnot. There's room for all that in there. I bagged everything in Ziploc bags because you end up with tons of these tokens. Eventually they're going to go in a small Plano case like I do with my other stuff. I'm just out of them right now and having a chance to get to the store. But you have tons of various of these markers for different status effects and things. There's templates for traps, hearts. The big one is the custom dice. And the dice are really neat for this game. They're color-coded. Depending on the various color, there's different options on the dice. You can see there the blue ones have a couple blanks on them. And you got a 2-star, 1-star, heart. Green one here has all the way up to 4 stars on there. Heart and a potion. So a lot of interesting variety. And depending on which characters and whatnot, which attacks you're using, you'll be rolling different amounts of these dice. And the main goal of this game is to roll as many stars as possible. We have this neat little deck here, which is for use with the arcade mode. And when you're playing in the arcade mode, this deck is actually how your monsters are actually going to perform and what they're going to do. Oh, and these cards are all mixed up. But in this case, you flip over the top card, you get hack and slash, your monsters are going to move one and fight. Definitely an interesting way of doing it. Adds a little bit of randomness to the game. There's little reference cards for the various pets that you can pick up in the game and their effects that they give you. They're kind of a rare draw out of the treasure decks, but still interesting. You have various cards here for the different tile effects. And you can match up the symbols here with the symbols that are on the board to know what the various effects are. There are lots of extra cards in this game because of the duplicate game modes between the arcade and the regular. These are arcade cards for various creatures, and they explain their stats, attacks, what they can do, and so on. And there's also different ones for the basic game with the Consul that gradually increase in strength. We have our treasure deck. This has all of your various equipment and things that you're going to get throughout the game. The neat thing about these is the way that the attributes go. They're made to stick around your player card, and you line up the colored gems with the gems on your card. So you basically have 4 slots that you can equip things in. And there's tons of different things in here. We also have our loot deck. Same thing. All your different upgrades with their different affinities of where you can equip them. And I have to say, this box here contains your miniatures. While the miniatures are amazing in this game, this is probably the one thing that kind of falls short. If you've seen the way that the miniatures were packaged in Arcadia Quest, while still not worth keeping them in that type of packaging, especially once you get the expansions, things aren't going to fit. The difference in this one is that they basically just throw everything in here. Now they are wrapped in groups of plastic bags based on type. I think all the characters are in one, all the monsters from each spawn point are in one, and so on. But they basically just throw everything in here, and unfortunately what that ended up with, a lot of the figures ended up with bent parts. Like you can see his spear there. It's a little difficult to see on camera, but his spear's definitely got a bend to it. And there's several others like that. Easy enough to be fixed with a hairdryer and some cold water, but still kind of disappointing. Definitely when you get the game, especially if you're going to paint your figures, you're going to want a better solution for storing your miniatures. I just left them in the box for now to show. And there you can see even the boss, his staff is bent horribly. Now with that said, some of the miniatures in here are probably some of the best I've ever seen especially for a board game. They rival stuff you'd see in tabletop miniature games like Warhammer and things like that. Definitely an amazing amount of detail, especially in the monsters. I'm kind of at a point of contention with some people in that the character models, I don't mind the chibi look to the game. That's part of its charm. Little focus there. And we've been having an ongoing debate over which are better looking models for the actual heroes. Some people say the ones from Super Dungeon Explorer. While they are cute, I do believe I actually like the Arcadia Quest characters better. But without a doubt, I will give the monsters from Super Dungeon Explorer are much more detailed. Haven't gotten around to trying to paint yet, but lots of detail in there to paint. These are the monster spawners. The game, in essence, if you think about it, plays a lot like the video game Gauntlet, in that these spawning points are around the table, and every turn they're basically spitting out more monsters, and you have to fight your way through the monsters to get to these and destroy these points in order to stop the monsters from spawning. You destroy these points, a mini-boss spawns. You destroy all the points, and the big boss spawns. Not only are the monsters really cool, there's a huge variety of different ones in the base package here, and the fact that the game's been around for a while, there's lots of expansions with various additional monsters that you can pick up. They range from things like this Frog Knight here, which I don't care what they want to call it or what they say, that is a Chocobo from Final Fantasy. But you have those. There's little plant guys. There's mushroom people. I don't know the names of them off the top of my head yet, but huge variety of stuff comes in the base set. Really cool. So the amount of stuff you actually get in the box is just massive. Definitely have to invest in like a Plano case or some sort of storage. I see a lot of people making inserts out of like foam core to separate everything and put it out. Most likely once you've started playing the game, especially if you're going to get into painting your models, you're definitely going to want to find something new to store your models in. Battle foam offers some different things. Pick and pluck foam cases, any of that kind of stuff will work. But definitely want something to protect the figures a little better than the box they normally throw them in. You want some kind of, like I said, a Plano case works great to store all of these various tokens. Right now I've got them all in Ziploc bags, but there's a ton of them. Luckily I had a bunch left over from my Attack Wing expansions I opened. Can almost guarantee, depending on how you're going to repackage stuff, they're not going to fit back in the base box alone. You can probably get everything in there except for the models if you've repackaged them somehow. Definitely a ton of cool components, tons and tons of miniatures. You can see them all down there. And overall it's a really cool game. If you're looking for a dungeon crawl, this one definitely has a lot of potential. There's lots of strategy and depth to get into the game, to customize your characters with the different equipment you pick up. And it can be a lot of fun, especially if you have a good play group to play it with. If you're looking for something to play solo or with very few players, the arcade mode is definitely an option. It's kind of a cool addition to the game. I will warn you, your first few playthroughs, until you get the hang of the rules and get used to playing and speeding things along, it is going to take you quite a while to play. I've had a couple games go a few hours, which is really the biggest drawback to the game for me right now. As I said, I've seen experienced players whip through games in like no time flat, so definitely it is just a learning thing, and once you get the hang of it, that's not so much of an issue. Of the two right now, I compared this to Arcadia Quest, which I recently did a video on for as well. I actually leaning more towards Arcadia Quest. I kind of like that one better. This one does have a lot more strategy and depth to it, I think. That one's more of a light, casual game. The fact that it plays so much quicker right out of the box, though, is really what draws me in. And you get a lot of people who want to play multiple games a night. This one tends to take a little bit longer, at least at my play experience right now, and people mostly are pretty much done with it after one playthrough, which is fine. You can always break it out another night and pick up where you left off, and and it's still definitely a fun game. They're both fun in their own ways. I really do like this, and I think it has a lot of potential. There's lots of expansions available. There's even an upgrade pack that lets you bring back older expansions for the original first edition of the game and use them with the current new rules, which is also really cool. It also lets you bring those into arcade mode as well, which is also really cool. So definitely a lot of potential here. It's a fun game. Tons of components. If you're into the video game style dungeon crawl, this is definitely worth taking a look at. And hopefully once I get some things worked out around here, I'm going to be doing some playthroughs. In the very least, I may do some single player arcade mode playthroughs just to show you what the game's like. Hopefully I can get a group together and actually play through as a group, which is what I really want to do with a ton of the games I have laying around, and it's something on my wish list of things to do. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.